I returned home after weeks in the hospital, and my belongings were thrown into the garage like trash. My son-in-law, with a smug smile, declared, "You no longer live in this house. My father needs the room." I stared him in the eye and replied coldly, "Then I'll throw another piece of trash out of my house. The time for revenge has come. The time to show them who really has the power." Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. I pulled into the driveway at 4:17 on a Wednesday afternoon, my lower back aching from 3 weeks of hospital chairs and my sister's lumpy guest bed. The March sky hung gray over Portland, threatening rain, but holding off. I'd stopped at that toy store in Olympia on the way back, the one with the wooden trains in the window. My grandchildren would love those. Emma was learning her colors, and little Marcus couldn't get enough of anything with wheels. The gift bag sat on the passenger seat beside an envelope containing $3,000 in cash. I'd withdrawn it before leaving for Seattle. Money I'd been setting aside for Jennifer's roof repair. The shingles were curling badly on the south side. She'd mentioned it last fall, worried about leaks. That's what fathers do. We fix things. We provide. I gathered the bags carefully, tucked the envelope in my jacket pocket, and grabbed my travel duffel from the trunk. My knees protested as I straightened. 64 years means your body keeps score of every choice you've made. 3 weeks sleeping in that chair beside my sister's hospital bed had added interest to the debt. The front door was unlocked. I pushed it open with my shoulder, called out a greeting. "I'm home. Where is everyone?" Silence answered. Not the peaceful quiet of an empty house, but something thicker, expectant. I set the gift bags on the entryway table, noticing Jennifer's keys in the bowl, Kevin's jacket on the hook. Someone was home. I moved down the hallway toward the bedrooms, intending to drop my duffel in my room and maybe lie down for 20 minutes before dinner. The master bedroom door was closed. Unusual. I heard voices behind it, low, conversational, comfortable. Instead of knocking, I turned toward the garage. I'd put the duffel there first, come back for the gifts, give them a moment to finish whatever conversation they were having. I opened the door to the garage and reached for the light switch. Cardboard boxes, dozens of them stacked against the walls, creating narrow pathways through what had been my workshop space. I stepped inside, my hands still on the switch, and read the nearest label in Jennifer's handwriting. Marural clothes. The box beside it, Marural books. Another Marural personal items. My framed photographs, the ones that had sat on my dresser for 30 years. Jennifer's kindergarten picture, my wedding photo, my parents' anniversary portrait, stacked carelessly in an open box, bubble wrap bunched around them. I picked up Jennifer's kindergarten photo. The glass was cracked, a diagonal split cutting right through her gap to smile. I don't remember dropping my duffel. I don't remember how long I stood there staring at my life packed away like inventory for a storage unit. "You're back." Kevin's voice came from behind me. I turned. He stood in the doorway between the garage and the house, arms crossed over his chest, blocking the entrance. No smile, no greeting, no explanation offered like a normal person might give when caught doing something extraordinary. "What is this?" My voice came out steadier than I felt. "Jennifer, what's going on?" She appeared behind Kevin's shoulder. Wouldn't meet my eyes. Her fingers found her wedding ring. Twisted it again. "Dad, we need to talk. I'll handle this." Kevin cut her off, stepped forward into the garage. He moved like he owned the space, like he owned everything. I set down the cracked photo frame very carefully. "Handle what? These are my things. This is my house. Was your house." Kevin's tone was the same one he used with the grandchildren when they misbehaved. Patient, corrective, things change. My father needed a place, and that bedroom has the best space. The words took a moment to land. I was gone 3 weeks taking care of my sister. You packed up my life. You weren't using it. Kevin shrugged, a small gesture that communicated mountains of indifference. The room was sitting empty. We made a practical decision. I turned to Jennifer, still half hidden behind her husband. "Jennifer, tell me you didn't agree to this." "Kevin handles the house decisions now." She barely whispered it. "That's right." Kevin's smile didn't reach his eyes. New rules for a new situation. A sound from the doorway. An older man emerged from the hallway behind Jennifer. Tall, gay-haired, wearing a bathrobe. My bathrobe. He surveyed the garage, saw me standing among the boxes, and his lips curled slightly. Satisfied, he turned and walked back down the hallway. I heard the master bedroom door close. Kevin's father, Harold. I'd met him twice before, both times briefly. He'd struck me as arrogant then, the kind of man who treated waitstaff poorly and interrupted conversations. Your father is in my bedroom. He needs comfort. He's 65, has back problems. That room has the best mattress. The attached bathroom makes sense. I reached into my jacket, pulled out the envelope, held it toward Jennifer. My hand didn't shake. I brought money for the roof. $3,000 I saved. Kevin took it before Jennifer could move. Didn't open it. Didn't thank me. Just tucked it into his back pocket like I'd handed him spare change. Good. We'll need that. The garage has electricity. You'll be comfortable enough out here. He walked away. Jennifer followed. Neither looked back. The door closed. I stood there surrounded by boxes containing everything I owned in the garage of the house I'd paid off 15 years ago. From inside, I heard the television turn on in the master bedroom. Laughter. Harold's voice loud and pleased with himself. I picked up the gift bags from where I'd left them in the doorway. Set them down carefully on top of a box labeled Merle shoes. I opened the box with Jennifer's photo again, lifted the cracked frame, ran my thumb across the broken glass. I didn't remember it being damaged before packing. Someone had been careless. More laughter drifted from the bedroom. My bedroom, my television, my house. I set down the frame, walked toward the door that led back inside. My jaw ached from clenching. I needed answers. I needed to understand what exactly had happened while I'd been sitting beside my dying sister's hospital bed, holding her hand through the worst nights, making sure she didn't wake up alone and afraid. The confrontation lasted 3 minutes. I found them in the living room. Kevin sprawled on the couch, Jennifer curled in the armchair, Harold holding the remote control like a scepter. I asked for an explanation. Kevin provided one. The decision is final. I asked Jennifer to look at me, speak to me, remember who I was. She studied the carpet. Harold chuckled. I returned to the garage. The boxes had multiplied in my absence. Or maybe I just saw them differently now, understood what they represented. I pulled out containers until I found my old sleeping bag, the blue one I'd used for camping trips with Jennifer when she was small. We'd gone to Crater Lake, watched meteor showers, told stories until she fell asleep against my shoulder. I cleared a space on the concrete floor, pushed aside paint cans and gardening tools, unrolled the sleeping bag. The garage heater sat in the corner. I flipped the switch, heard it click and hum, felt a weak stream of lukewarm air, better than nothing. Through the wall that separated the garage from the house, I heard the television, voices from some comedy show, then laughter. Harold's laugh was distinctive, a braying sound that carried. The master bedroom shared a wall with the garage. Every sound traveled through the drywall, the TV footsteps, the creak of bed springs. When Harold settled into what had been my bed, I lay down on the sleeping bag, still wearing my travel clothes. The concrete was hard beneath my shoulders. Cold seeped up through the fabric. I stared at the ceiling, at the exposed beams and the pull string for the overhead bulb, and listened to my family living comfortably in my house without me. Hours passed. The house went quiet around midnight. I didn't sleep. Instead, I thought about numbers. The mortgage I'd paid for 30 years, finished 15 years ago, the property taxes, the insurance premiums, the new furnace 2 winters back. The roof that needed repair, every payment, every expense, every penny invested into keeping the structure standing. My money, my work, my name on every document. I sat up, found the box labeled important papers, opened it under the dim overhead light. There it was. The house deed property ownership certificate showing Merle Andrew Bell as sole owner, purchased in 1995. The mortgage satisfaction letter from the bank dated 2010. Utility bills all addressed to me. I spread them across an overturned crate, studied them like a lawyer reviewing evidence. Jennifer's name appeared nowhere. I'd intended to add her eventually, thought about it every year around tax time, but I'd hesitated. Kevin had always struck me as financially careless. I'd wanted Jennifer to be secure, independent. Maybe subconsciously I'd known something. I looked at the documents, then at the wall separating me from the master bedroom. Laughter started again. Late-night television, some talk show. Harold found something hilarious. The eastern window above my workbench began to glow gray around 6 o'clock in the morning. I'd been awake the entire night running scenarios, doing calculations, understanding exactly where I stood legally and morally. I stood, joints protesting, and walked to the door that led into the house, opened it quietly. The kitchen was dark, but I saw a light from the hallway. I moved carefully, hoping to find Jennifer alone to speak with her before Kevin woke and inserted himself between us again. I stopped in the kitchen doorway. Harold sat at the head of the dining table. My spot, the chair I'd occupied for every meal since moving into this house. He wore a different bathrobe now. This one was new, expensive looking. Jennifer stood at the stove, her back to me making breakfast. The smell of coffee filled the air. "More coffee, dear." Harold held out his mug without looking at her. Jennifer filled it immediately, set the pot back, returned to the stove. I must have made some sound. Harold's head turned. He saw me standing there, studied me with amusement. "Well, look who decided to join us. Sleep well out there." I ignored him, kept my eyes on Jennifer's back. "I need to speak with my daughter. She's busy. Family breakfast time. Can we talk alone?" Jennifer's shoulders tensed, but she didn't turn from the stove. "Dad, now isn't a good time." Footsteps on the stairs. Kevin descended, saw me standing in the doorway, and moved past me to kiss Jennifer on the cheek. He didn't acknowledge my presence at all. Just sat down beside Harold and reached for the juice pitcher. "You heard her. We're eating." I stepped into the room, felt the shift in atmosphere. The way Kevin's posture straightened, the way Harold sat down his coffee mug with a deliberate clink. "This is my house." Each word came out precise, controlled. "I bought it 30 years ago. My name is on every document." Kevin pulled out his chair, sat with exaggerated casualness. "And Jennifer is your daughter. What's yours is hers. What's hers is mine. That's how marriage works." Harold actually laughed. "Sounds like someone's upset about the new arrangements." I turned to Jennifer again, forced her to acknowledge me. "Jennifer, look at me. Tell me you think this is right." She finally turned, met my eyes for half a second, then looked away. "Kevin knows what's best for our family. His father needs care. You travel anyway. I was caring for your aunt." Harold leaned back in his chair. My chair? And spread his hands magnanimously. "Look, Border. We don't want trouble. You can stay in the garage as long as you follow house rules." Kevin's rules. Border. The word hung in the air. A tenant. A guest. Someone permitted to exist on the margins of his own property. I looked at each of them in turn. Kevin confident and cruel. Harold openly contemptuous. Jennifer, unable or unwilling to defend the man who'd raised her alone after her mother died, who'd worked double shifts to pay for her college, who'd babysat her children every weekend for 5 years. "House rules in my house," Kevin smiled. "Our house now." I turned and walked back through the kitchen, through the door into the garage. I didn't slam it. I closed it carefully, precisely, the way you close something when you've made a decision and don't need the dramatic gesture. The documents were still spread across the crate where I'd left them. House deed, mortgage satisfaction letter, utility bills, all bearing my name alone. I picked up my phone, scrolled through the contacts until I found the one I needed. I didn't call yet. I sat there on the overturned crate, holding the phone in one hand, looking at the papers that proved ownership, then at the house visible through the window. The laughter from the master bedroom started up again. Some morning show. Harold enjoyed his comedy. They thought I was weak. They thought I'd accept this. They'd forgotten something important about the man they just exiled to his own garage. I'd built this life from nothing. Spent 40 years learning how structures work, how to identify weaknesses, how to take something apart without it collapsing until you wanted it to collapse. I knew exactly how to dismantle what I had created. My finger hovered over the contact name. Not yet. First, I needed to understand the full scope of what they'd done. Needed to know every detail, every piece they'd moved while I was gone. Then I'd start making calls. The garage felt different in daylight. Less like exile, more like a staging area. I pulled my travel duffel from the trunk, added clean clothes from the box labeled with my name, toiletries from another. Methodical, visible through the window that faced the kitchen. I wanted them to see me packing. The front door opened as I loaded the bag into my car. Kevin stepped out, watched me work, didn't offer help, didn't ask questions, just observed, arms loose at his sides, waiting to see what I'd do. I closed the trunk, walked to where he stood, blocking the doorway. I'm heading to a motel. Give you folks some room. His expression shifted, relief poorly disguised as concern probably for the best. Less tension for everyone, especially for the grandkids, right? The grandkids. He said it like he'd forgotten they existed until I mentioned them. Jennifer appeared behind him, still in her bathrobe, though it was past 9. She followed me to the car, her slippers scuffing against the driveway concrete. Dad, you understand, don't you? Kevin's father has health issues. I loaded the last bag without looking at her. I understand everything now. I knew you would. You're always so reasonable. Reasonable? The word tasted bitter. I'd been reasonable for 64 years. Reasonable when her mother died and I raised her alone. Reasonable when Kevin lost his third job and I paid their mortgage for 6 months. Reasonable when they asked to move in temporarily 5 years ago and that temporary arrangement calcified into permanence. I drove away watching them in the rearview mirror. Kevin's arm around Jennifer's shoulders. Both of them relaxed victorious. The budget inn on 82nd Avenue wasn't picturesque. The carpet was older than my grandchildren. The air conditioning wheezed, and the parking lot needed resurfacing, but the weekly rate was fair, and the clerk didn't ask unnecessary questions when I said I'd be staying a while. I spread my documents across the narrow desk in room 217. The house deed looked smaller outside the safe deposit box, less impressive on cheap laminate than it had in my mind, but the words were clear. Sole owner Merle Andrew Bell. Purchase date, April 12, 1995. 30 years ago, I'd been 34. Jennifer was 6. My wife was still alive. My old wallet sat at the bottom of the document box. The leather cracked and faded. I opened it out of habit more than hope. Behind an expired Costco card and a photo of Jennifer at her high school graduation, I found it. The safe deposit box key, brass and small, attached to a paper tag with my account number. Wells Fargo downtown still had the same marble floors I remembered from when I'd opened that box 20 years back. The security procedures had updated. More cameras, more forms, a younger employee who scanned my ID 3 times before leading me to the vault. Haven't seen you in a while, Mr. Bell. Everything okay? I pulled the long metal box from its slot. Felt the weight of it. Just need to review some documents, making sure everything's in order. Smart to keep copies. You'd be surprised how many people lose important papers. I'm not planning to lose anything. Inside the original house deed with its embossed seal, the title insurance policy, the mortgage satisfaction letter from 2018. I remembered that day making the final payment, feeling the weight of 3 decades of monthly checks finally lift. I'd taken Jennifer and the grandkids out for dinner to celebrate. Kevin hadn't come, some work obligation he couldn't miss. The FedEx office on Burnside had better lighting than the motel. I spread everything across their counter. Deed, title, mortgage certificate, 2 years of utility bills showing only my name, bank statements proving every payment had come from my account alone. That's a lot of documentation. Legal matter. The worker was young, maybe 25, with tattoos covering both forearms. His name tag read Marcus, same name as my grandson. Property matter. Hope it works out for you. I watched the machine produce certified copies, each page emerging warm and crisp. It will. Back in the motel room, I created order from chaos. Original documents in one stack, copies in another, my handwritten notes in a third. I pulled out the motel notepad and constructed a timeline. April 1995, purchased house, 180, 30-year mortgage. September 2012, Jennifer married Kevin. March 2018, final mortgage payment, house fully paid. January 2020, Jennifer, Kevin, and kids moved in temporarily. March 2025, my belongings moved to garage. Harold moved into master bedroom. The dates told a story. I'd owned the house outright for 7 years before Jennifer moved in. The marriage predated my final payment by 6 years. Nothing about their claim held legal water. I remembered a conversation from 2 years ago. Kevin at my kitchen table, calculator out, yellow legal pad covered in numbers. With estate taxes, Jennifer could lose 40% of the value. Better to keep it in your name for now, protection for her. At the time, I'd thought he was being prudent, protecting his wife. Now I saw it differently. He'd been protecting himself. If the house was in Jennifer's name and they divorced, he'd have claimed to have. But as long as it remained mine, he had to keep her happy to maintain access. My laptop screen glowed in the dim motel light. I typed Oregon tenant eviction laws. The results filled pages. I read about lease requirements, notice periods, tenant rights. I learned about Oregon revised statutes, landlord obligations, formal eviction procedures. I took notes in the margins of printed articles, highlighting relevant sections, building my case piece by piece. They weren't tenants. No lease existed. No rent had ever been collected. They were occupants. Family I'd allowed to stay. That changed everything. Around 6 that evening, I created a folder from a manila envelope I'd found in the document box. Wrote on the tab in black marker, property evidence. My laptop search shifted. Real estate attorneys, Portland, Oregon eviction specialists. 17 firms appeared. I read reviews, checked credentials, studied attorney photos and biographies. Most were too young, too corporate, too focused on commercial properties. Then I found Clark and Associates on the 3rd page of results. Dorothy Clark's photo showed a woman near my age, maybe early 60s, with sharp eyes and gray hair she hadn't tried to hide with dye. Her biography was concise. 30 years specializing in residential property law, landlord-tenant disputes, and family property matters. I believe in straightforward solutions to complex problems. Family property matters. That phrase resonated. The office address was downtown, not far from the bank I'd visited earlier. I could be there when they opened tomorrow. Walk in, present my case, see if her photograph matched reality. I closed the laptop, set my phone alarm for 7. For the first time since returning from Seattle, since discovering my life packed in boxes, since sleeping on concrete and eating nothing, I felt the possibility of sleep approaching. I lay on the motel bed, fully clothed, staring at the water-stained ceiling tiles. Outside, traffic hummed on 82nd Avenue. Someone in the next room watched television, voices and laugh tracks bleeding through thin walls. But in my room there was quiet. There was order. There were documents proving I owned something they thought they'd taken. I slept soundly. The law office occupied the 5th floor of a building that had probably been modern in the 80s. The elevator creaked. The hallway carpet showed traffic patterns, but the door to Clark and Associates gleamed with fresh polish. Someone cared about first impressions. The receptionist looked up from her computer as I entered. Young, efficient, protective. "Do you have an appointment, sir?" I held up my evidence folder. "No, but I need to speak with Miss Clark about property law. It's urgent. She's booked until 2:30. I can schedule. I have 15 minutes before my next client." The voice came from an interior doorway. Dorothy Clark stepped into the lobby, and her photograph hadn't lied. She stood maybe 5 feet 6 inches, wore a navy suit that suggested competence without trying for intimidation, and her eyes assessed me in the time it took to cross the room. "Come in." Her office was organized, but not sterile. Law degrees from Lewis Wiss and Clark covered one wall. An Oregon State Bar certificate hung beside them. A single photograph sat on the credenza. A younger woman, maybe 40, smiling in front of an ocean backdrop, her daughter probably. The desk held neat stacks of folders, a laptop, a coffee mug with the firm's logo. She gestured to a leather chair across from her desk, sat in her own, leaned forward slightly. "Tell me the situation, just facts. Who owns what? Who lives where? What happened when I started to explain about Jennifer, about coming home to find? Start with the property. When did you acquire it? Is anyone else on the title? Her interruption was gentle but firm. She wanted foundation, not emotion. I bought it in 1995, paid it off in 2018. Only my name on everything. Your daughter lives there now with her husband, their kids, and now his father. They moved my things to the garage while I was caring for my sister. Dorothy pulled a legal pad toward her, wrote quickly. Do they pay rent? Is there a lease? No, I pay everything. Utilities, property tax, insurance. She looked up from her notes, and something in her expression shifted. Still professional, but with an edge of understanding. Then you have perfect legal standing. This isn't complicated. But she's my daughter. People will think. People will think what they think. What matters is what's legal and what's right. Are those the same thing to you? The question hung between us. I thought about Harold in my bathrobe. Kevin taking my money without thanks. Jennifer unable to meet my eyes. They should be. They are here. Dorothy stood, walked to her conference table, gestured for me to join her. Show me what you brought. I spread the contents of my folder across the polished surface. She moved through them methodically, using sticky notes to mark key documents, making annotations on her legal pad. Her efficiency was remarkable. No wasted movement, no unnecessary questions. House deed, sole ownership, mortgage satisfaction, dated 2018, utility bills for 24 months, all in your name, bank statements showing all payments from your account. She straightened, crossed her arms. Mr. Bell, this is textbook perfect. They have no lease, no tenant rights, no legal claim to occupancy. Oregon law allows no-cause eviction with proper notice. How much notice depends on how long they've lived there. More than a year? 5 years. She nodded, moved to a whiteboard mounted on her wall, picked up a blue marker. Then we follow this progression. She drew 3 boxes connected by arrows. Step 1. 30-day no-cause eviction notice. Properly served. Step 2. If they don't comply, utility pressure, you stop paying bills, though that's risky. Step 3. Formal eviction proceedings through court. How long does all that take? If they fight it, 2 to 3 months total. If they're smart and leave after the notice, 30 days. I watched her write Oregon Revised Statutes 90.427 beneath the first box. The statute number meant nothing to me, but her certainty did. What happens if they claim I'm trying to hurt my grandchildren? Make me look cruel. Dorothy set down the marker, returned to her chair. When she spoke, her voice had changed, still professional but carrying weight beyond legal expertise. 3 years ago, my son tried to have me declared incompetent. He wanted my law practice, claimed I couldn't manage contracts anymore, couldn't be trusted with client matters. He had a psychiatrist ready to testify, had gathered statements from people I'd supposedly confused in conversations. I sat forward. What did you do? I took him to court, brought my own expert witnesses, my client testimonials, my case records showing 0 errors. I won. Haven't spoken to him since. Any regrets? Her eyes met mine directly. Only that I didn't act sooner. Family doesn't mean accepting abuse, Mr. Bell. It means expecting better. And when they can't meet that expectation, it means protecting yourself. The photograph on her credenza made sense now. Not a son's picture, but a daughter's, the child who'd presumably stood by her. How do we start? Dorothy pulled a pre-printed form from her desk drawer. I draft the eviction notice today, have it notarized tomorrow, serve it Monday by certified mail and sheriff's deputy. That starts your 30 days. You pay me a flat fee of $2,500 plus court costs if we need to file. After that, you direct all communication from them to me. No conversations, no explanations, no negotiations. I pulled out my checkbook. When do I pay? Half now, half when they vacate. I wrote the check for $1,250 without hesitation. My hand didn't shake. The numbers felt right. A bargain, really, for reclaiming what had always been mine. Dorothy walked me to her office window. We stood side by side, looking down at the street 5 floors below. People moved along the sidewalk, carrying coffee cups, briefcases, shopping bags. Normal lives, normal problems. The eviction notice goes to a notary tomorrow, gets served by Monday. Dorothy said they have 30 days from service to vacate. If they refuse, we file for court-ordered eviction. That takes another 2 to 3 weeks. A bus pulled up to the stop below. Passengers got off, others got on. The routine of it felt distant. They'll be shocked, Dorothy continued. They'll probably call you angry. Don't engage. Direct all communication to me. She pulled a business card from her jacket pocket, wrote something on the back, handed it to me, her cell phone number. Call anytime, evenings. Her hand lingered when I took the card, just a moment longer than professional courtesy required. You're doing the right thing, she said. I believed her. I hadn't believed much of anything recently. Not Jennifer's excuses, not Kevin's justifications, not my own ability to fix what had broken. But I believed Dorothy Clark. What do I do until Monday? She smiled slightly, the first time her expression had softened since I'd entered her office. Whatever you want, just don't go back to that house. Not yet. I left her building and walked to my car. The spring air smelled like rain coming, and the downtown buildings threw long shadows across the pavement. My phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer. Dad, where are you? The kids want to say hi. I deleted it without responding. Dorothy had said no communication. I follow her advice. At the motel, I ordered Chinese delivery and spread the documents across the desk again. This time they looked different. Not like evidence of loss, but like ammunition. Proof I wasn't helpless. Wasn't without recourse. Wasn't the confused old man they'd assumed would simply accept displacement. Monday was 3 days away, 72 hours until the notice arrived, until their comfortable assumption of victory shattered. I ate my dinner slowly, tasted every bite, and slept better than I had in weeks. The coffee shop near the motel smelled like burnt beans and cleaning solution. I sat in the corner booth, phone centered on the table between my hands, watching the screen like it might detonate. Stephen Wright was supposed to arrive at the house by 10:30. Dorothy had recommended him, a professional notary who specialized in difficult service situations. He served foreclosures, restraining orders, bankruptcy notices, she told me. Your eviction notice will be easy by comparison. My coffee went cold. I ordered another, left it untouched. The text arrived at 10:53, delivered to Kevin Thompson. 10:47 a.m. signed receipt attached. Stephen. I exhaled. Hadn't realized I'd been holding my breath. The attachment showed Kevin's signature, hasty and angular, scrolled across the acknowledgement line. Proof of service, legal documentation that the 30-day clock had started. I paid for the coffee I hadn't drunk and drove back to the motel. What I didn't see, what Stephen told me later when I called for details, was Kevin's initial reaction. He'd answered the door in sweatpants and a t-shirt, irritated at being interrupted during late breakfast. Legal notice for the occupants of this residence. Kevin had glanced at the paper, then actually laughed. This is a joke, right? That old man actually thinks sign here, please. Stephen had interrupted, holding out a pen. Whether you think it's valid doesn't affect the legal timeline. Kevin had signed, still smiling, confident in his dismissal. Stephen said he'd heard Kevin reading the notice aloud to someone inside. Voice dripping with theatrical mockery. 30-day notice to vacate. He's lost his mind. That confidence lasted approximately 4 hours. My phone rang at 3:15. Unknown number. I answered cautiously. Mr. Bell, this is Dan Richardson. I'm a friend of Kevin Thompson's. He just showed me the eviction notice you served and it's legitimate, completely legal. I wanted to call and suggest we discuss terms before this goes further. There are no terms. The notice stands. Mr. Bell, I understand you're upset, but I hung up. Kevin arrived at the motel at 7 that evening. I heard him before I saw him. Heavy footsteps on the outdoor walkway, the kind of deliberate stomp meant to intimidate. He pounded on my door with the side of his fist. I opened it but didn't invite him in. Stood in the doorway, forcing him to have this conversation where other guests could hear. Merle, come on. Let's talk about this like adults. We're past talking. Your daughter, your grandkids, you'd really throw them out. I'm enforcing my property rights. You have 30 days. His face shifted. The reasonable mask slipped. You do this, you'll never see those kids again. Ever. I kept my voice level. Then you'll never see the inside of that house after May 2nd. Your choice. My father has health problems. You know this. Then find him appropriate housing. That's not my responsibility. Kevin stepped closer. I didn't move back. Jennifer will hate you for this. Jennifer made her choice when she let you pack my belongings without telling me. He stared at me, searching for weakness, finding none. Then he turned and walked away, each footstep deliberate on the concrete. I closed the door, sat on the bed, waited. The call came 90 minutes later. Jennifer's name on the screen. Dad, please. Her voice was thick with tears. The kids are asking why Grandpa is making us leave. Jennifer, I can hear Kevin coaching you. Pause. Kevin's voice in the background, not quite whispered. Tell him about their school. Put the phone on speaker. Kevin, are you there? Shuffling. Then Kevin's voice, clear and cold. We're not leaving. Force us out and watch what happens to your reputation. My reputation is with myself. I'll see you in 30 days. Someone grabbed the phone. Harold's voice came through sharp and venomous. You senile old fool. You think you can? I hung up mid-sentence. The phone rang immediately. Kevin's number. I didn't answer. It rang again. Declined. Third time. Declined. A text arrived. You just made the biggest mistake of your life. I deleted it. Another text from Jennifer. How could you do this to your own family? Deleted. My phone buzzed with a notification. Facebook. Jennifer had tagged me in a post. I opened the app, something I rarely did. There was a photo of Emma and Marcus, both looking down at the camera with exaggerated sad expressions. The caption read, "Heartbroken that my children are being forced from their home by their grandfather. Please send prayers." 3 comments already. So sorry, Jennifer. Praying for you and the babies. Family should support each other, not tear each other apart. I closed the app, stared at the ceiling. I'd known this would come. Dorothy had warned me. But seeing it, reading strangers passing judgment based on half the story, it stung worse than I'd anticipated. My phone rang again. Dorothy's name this time. I answered. Have you seen Jennifer's post? Dorothy's voice came through clear, concerned, but not panicked. Background noise suggested she was still at her office despite the late hour. Just now. This is standard. Make the other side look like the villain. Don't engage. I sat up straighter on the bed. People I've known for years are commenting, calling me heartless. They don't know the full story. You can't win a trial on social media. Merle, stay silent. How long will this go on? Until they realize it's not working or until the 30 days are up. Whichever comes first. She was right. I knew she was right, but knowing didn't make it easier. The next morning, I checked Facebook against my better judgment. Jennifer's post had multiplied overnight. 17 comments now. Former colleagues from the architecture firm where I'd worked for 30 years. Neighbors from the street where I'd lived since Jennifer was 6. Mrs. Patterson from 3 doors down. This breaks my heart. Those poor babies. A new post appeared while I watched. A photo of Harold sitting in an armchair looking frail and worried. Jennifer's caption. Facing homelessness at 65 with serious health conditions. Where is the compassion? I closed the app through the phone on the bed. Wednesday morning, the motel office called my room. Mr. Bell, there's a certified letter here for you. The envelope was from Martin Webb, attorney at law. The return address was a strip mall on 122nd Avenue. I opened it standing in the parking lot. Dear Mr. Bell, I represent Kevin Thompson, Jennifer Thompson, Harold Thompson, and minor children Emma and Marcus Thompson. Your attempt to evict my clients constitutes elder abuse of Mr. Harold Thompson and endangers the welfare of minor children by creating housing instability. I read it twice. The accusations were baseless. I knew that even without legal training, but the words still landed. Elder abuse, endangering minors, constructive eviction. The letter made me sound monstrous. I called Dorothy from my car. It's posturing, she said after I read her the relevant sections. Webb is a strip mall lawyer trying to scare you into backing down. The notice stands. But what if? No what ifs. The law is the law. Everything else is noise. I wanted to believe her. Tried to hold on to her certainty. Thursday afternoon, I needed groceries. Basic things: bread, milk, coffee, the kind of shopping you can't avoid even when you'd rather hide in a motel room. Fred Meyer on 82nd was busy for a weekday. I grabbed a cart, headed for produce, picked up apples, moved toward the dairy section. Merle. Mrs. Patterson stood near the bananas, her cart half full. We'd been neighbors for 20 years. She'd brought casseroles after my wife died. Babysat Emma and Marcus occasionally when Jennifer needed help. Hello, Nancy. She gave me a look I'd never seen from her before. Cold, disappointed. I saw what Jennifer posted. Those poor children. There's more to the situation than I never thought you'd be that kind of grandfather. Just never thought it. They moved into my house and she was already walking away, shaking her head. There's always another way. Always. I stood there, hand on the cart handle, surrounded by people buying vegetables and going about normal Thursday afternoons. I abandoned the cart in the aisle and left. Back at the motel, Dorothy's text was waiting. Need to talk. Not about the case, about you. Coffee tomorrow. I stared at the message for a long time. Type back. Not sure that's necessary. Her response came immediately. It is 1 o'clock. The cafe on Hawthorne near 35th. Please. I agreed because I didn't have the energy to refuse. The cafe was quiet, tucked between a bookstore and a vintage clothing shop. Dorothy was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with 2 coffee cups in front of her. I ordered yours already. Black, right? How did you know? You strike me as someone who doesn't complicate things unnecessarily. We sat in silence for a moment. I sipped the coffee. It was good. Better than the motel or the chain place I'd been frequenting. Maybe everyone's right, I said finally. Maybe I am being cruel. Dorothy set down her cup carefully. Tell me something. When your daughter let her husband pack your belongings, was that kind? No. But when they gave your bedroom to his father without asking, was that respectful? No. Then why are you the one questioning yourself? I didn't have an answer. Dorothy leaned back, studied me for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice carried a different weight. My son brought a psychiatrist to my office 3 years ago. Said I was showing signs of dementia. Wanted me evaluated for competency. I looked up. Your own son? He needed me incompetent to take over my practice. He'd already talked to 3 of my partners about a smooth transition once I was declared unfit. What did you do? I fought. I hired my own experts, brought my case files, demonstrated my competency in front of a judge. I won. She paused. I lost him, but I kept my dignity and my business. Do you regret it? I regret that he forced me to choose, but I don't regret choosing myself. The cafe was warm despite the rain starting outside. A young couple sat near the window, laughing over something on a phone. Normal life continuing around us. What if I lose everyone? I asked quietly. Dorothy reached across the table. Her hand covered mine warm and solid. Then you find new people, better people, people who don't take your kindness for weakness. I looked at our hands. I hadn't held a woman's hand in years. Not since my wife passed 12 years ago. This felt different from simple comfort. It felt like partnership, like someone standing beside me instead of watching from a distance. They're counting on your weakness, Merle. On you backing down for peace. But that's not peace. That's surrender. And you'll spend the rest of your life living in a garage, wondering why you let them win. Rain pattered harder against the window. Neither of us moved our hands. The notice still stands, I said finally. It wasn't a question. The notice stands, Dorothy confirmed. Her hand stayed where it was. I turned mine over, let our fingers interlock properly. We sat like that while the rain fell and the coffee went cold, and for the first time since the grocery store encounter, I felt less alone. Outside, the world might be judging me. Online, strangers might be calling me heartless. But here, in this quiet cafe, with this woman who understood betrayal, the way only someone who'd lived it could understand, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. I felt certain. Dorothy spread utility bills across her conference table like a card dealer showing her hand. Electric, water, cable, internet. My name appeared on every account header. "They're living in your house on your dime," she said, tapping the cable bill with her pen. Time to turn off the money. We were 2 weeks into the 30-day notice period. Jennifer's Facebook posts had continued. Photos of the kids doing homework at the kitchen table. Captions about persevering through family crisis. Kevin hadn't responded to my calls or texts since the notice was served. They were dug in, treating the eviction as an empty threat. "The notice expires in 2 weeks," Dorothy continued. "They're still there." Jennifer posted yesterday about standing strong against injustice. "They're not leaving." Dorothy leaned back in her chair, studied me. "Then we increase pressure. Cable, internet, reduce utilities, all legal. You're the account holder preparing to sell. Companies don't care about family drama. How long does it take? Cable disconnects in 48 hours. Electric reduction takes about a week for the paperwork." She pulled up something on her laptop, turned the screen toward me. "You can't shut off electricity completely. Safety regulations, but you can request reduction to minimum service. Enough for refrigerator and basic lighting, nothing for entertainment or comfort." I thought about Kevin and Harold watching sports in my master bedroom, about the kids streaming cartoons on tablets, about Jennifer running the dryer 3 times a day because she'd never learned to plan laundry efficiently. "Do it," I said. Back at the motel, I called the cable company first. Put them on speaker so I could take notes. Old habit from architecture meetings where every detail mattered. "May I ask reason for disconnection?" "Property transition. I'm no longer residing there." "Will someone else be taking over the account?" "No." "Complete disconnection. I can process that effective in 48 hours. You'll receive confirmation email shortly." The electric company was more complicated. The representative questioned my request for minimum service, suggested I simply transfer the account to the current occupants. "Property is being contested," I explained, reducing to legal minimum until resolved. Legal minimum meant refrigerator, stove, and 1 light per room. No heating beyond what the furnace required for pipes. No air conditioning, no entertainment systems. The confirmation email arrived that evening. Service reduction effective in 5 business days. I photographed everything. Confirmation emails, service change receipts, created a spreadsheet with dates, times, account numbers. My architect's precision applied to legal warfare. Dorothy called that night. "How did it go?" "Cable cuts Friday. Electric reduces next Wednesday." "Good. Now we prepare the next phase." She paused. "Have you thought about listing the house? Selling it?" "Maybe, maybe not. But preparing the listing, getting photos, drafting MLS documents, sends a message, shows you're serious." We met with a real estate photographer on Saturday. He took exterior shots while I waited in the car, not wanting to risk encountering the family. The house looked good in the afternoon light, the garden I'd maintained for 30 years, the new gutters I'd installed 2 summers ago, the painted trim that Jennifer had once complimented. "When do you want this to go live?" the photographer asked, showing us the images on his laptop. I looked at Dorothy. She nodded slightly. "Not yet," I said. "I'll let you know in 10 days. The internet died Friday afternoon." Kevin called within an hour, voice tight with rage. "What did you do?" "The internet's dead. I disconnected services on my property." "You can't just. The kids need internet for school. You have 13 days to find a new residence with internet. I suggest you start looking. This is illegal. Cutting off utilities. Check with your attorney. I'm the account holder. I can modify or cancel any service I'm paying for." He hung up without another word. Jennifer called that evening. I heard the kids crying in the background, their voices high and panicked in the way children get when routine shatters. "Dad, please. The kids can't do their homework. It's dark by 6 o'clock and the lights barely work. I reduced electricity to minimum safe levels. Refrigerator works. A basic lighting works. Anything else requires you to open your own account. We can't afford." Then perhaps you should consider the housing I was providing wasn't as burdensome as Kevin made it seem. Silence, then quietly. "Mom would be ashamed of you." The words landed, sat heavy in my chest. I'd been expecting them, had prepared for them, but hearing them still hurt. Your mother taught you better than this, Jennifer. She'd be ashamed of how you've treated me. I ended the call before she could respond. 2 days later, Dorothy and I sat in the photographer's office reviewing the house images. He'd done excellent work. Professional staging, perfect lighting. The property looked worth $20,000 more than market value. Send these to Kevin, Dorothy suggested. No words, just the photos. I hesitated only a moment, pulled out my phone, selected all 12 images, forwarded them to Kevin's number. 3 dots appeared immediately. Kevin was typing. Then they stopped. Started again. Stopped. No message came. Dorothy's hand found mine on the desk. Her fingers were warm, steady. He knows now, she said quietly. He knows you'll really do it. We sat watching my phone screen, waiting for a response that never arrived. The silence felt louder than any of Kevin's threats had been. Outside the window, Portland went about its Tuesday afternoon. Cars passed. People walked dogs. Normal life continuing while I dismantled mine, piece by careful piece. But Dorothy's hand stayed where it was, and that felt more solid than anything I'd lost. Dorothy closed her office door, which she'd never done before. Usually, we left it open during meetings. Professional courtesy, nothing to hide. She sat beside me on the leather couch instead of across the desk. I have a practical solution to discuss. Her tone was careful, measured. She knew I'd resist. About the case, about where you're living. She pulled out her phone, showed me photos of a small house, cream-colored siding, red front door, garden with late-blooming tulips. I have a rental property, Selwood area. Current tenant moved out last month. That's nice, but I can manage the motel. Merle, I've been to that motel. It smells like disinfectant and sadness. The house is sitting empty. Use it. I can't accept. This isn't charity. It's practical. She met my eyes directly. I can't have my client living in depression when he needs to stay sharp. The house was 15 minutes from her office, tucked on a quiet street where maples met overhead, forming a canopy. Dorothy unlocked the front door, and I stepped into sunlight. Actual warm sunlight streaming through windows that hadn't been covered with heavy curtains to block out motel parking lot lights. 2 bedrooms, updated kitchen with white subway tile, hardwood floors that creaked pleasantly underfoot, a back door that opened to a small garden with raised beds ready for planting. I stood in the living room, feeling my shoulders drop for the first time in weeks. This is too much, Dorothy. It's a house. Empty houses deteriorate. You'd actually be helping me by keeping it occupied. I'd insist on paying rent. Fine. Pay me when you sell your house and this nightmare is over. Until then, consider it case expenses. I almost smiled. That's not how case expenses work. I'm the attorney. I decide how they work. We loaded my belongings from the motel. 2 suitcases, a box of documents, my laptop bag. Everything I owned fit in the trunk of her car. She drove, refused to let me take my own vehicle. Said something about paperwork she needed me to sign at the bungalow. Unpacking took 20 minutes. Dorothy knew where everything should go without asking. Clothes in the bedroom closet, toiletries in the bathroom, documents in the second bedroom that could serve as an office. She moved through the space like she'd planned this, like she'd visualized me living here before offering. In the kitchen, she opened the refrigerator. Milk, eggs, bread, fresh vegetables, pasta, marinara sauce. You stocked it. I stared at the shelves. I had a feeling you'd say yes eventually. Confident, aren't you? Practical. I'm always practical. I pulled out the pasta, examined the label like it held answers. Is that what this is? Practical? She didn't answer immediately, opened a cabinet, found a pot without having to search. What else would it be? We cooked together in that small kitchen. She started the water boiling while I chopped vegetables. We bumped into each other, reaching for olive oil, laughed when she dropped a spoon, and I caught it before it hit the floor. Easy, natural, like we'd done this before in some other life. Sun came through the window above the sink, caught her profile as she stirred the sauce. Gray hair, reading glasses pushed up on her head, the slight smile she wore when concentrating. I realized I was happy. Genuinely happy. Not just content or distracted or managing. Actually happy. When had I last felt that you read architecture history? She'd found my books while unpacking. Held up a volume on Victorian design. Used to design buildings. Liked understanding what came before. Past tense. You don't design anymore. Retired 5 years ago. Thought I'd have time for other things like being pushed into a garage. I laughed despite myself. That wasn't part of the retirement plan. We ate at the small dining table. The pasta was simple, perfect. Dorothy asked about my career, about buildings I designed. I asked about her daughter in Boston, what she did, whether they were close. When's the last time someone cooked you dinner? I asked. I usually cook for myself. That's not what I asked. She considered. Fork paused halfway to her mouth. My daughter maybe 2 years ago before she moved to Boston. You must miss her every day. But she has her life. I have mine. Does it get easier? The distance from family. Dorothy set down her fork. Looked at me across the table. You learn to fill the space differently. My phone buzzed. I ignored it. It buzzed again. Jennifer's name on the screen. I picked it up. Read the text aloud. Harold and Kevin had huge fight. Kids are scared. Please reconsider. Dorothy read it over my shoulder. Said nothing. Just squeezed my hand where it rested on the table. We washed dishes together. She scrubbed. I dried. The window over the sink looked out on the garden. Twilight settling purple over the raised beds. I could plant tomatoes there. Maybe herbs. The thought felt radical after weeks of motel rooms and garage exile. At the front door, Dorothy picked up her purse, pulled out her keys. Thank you, I said, for everything. The house, the case, the I didn't know how to finish. She adjusted her coat, not quite meeting my eyes. You'd do the same. Would I? She looked at me then. I think you would. I think you're someone who helps people. That's why this situation hurt so much. You were always the one giving and they just took. Something shifted in the space between us. I reached out, touched her arm gently. Stay a little longer. Her keys were in her hand. She looked at them, then at me. I should stay, not demanding, just asking. Dorothy set her keys on the entry table. Maybe one more cup of coffee, she said softly. We moved back to the kitchen. I started the coffee maker while she leaned against the counter, watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. The house settled around us. The creak of floorboards, the hum of the refrigerator, the distant sound of someone's dog barking 3 houses down. Normal sounds, home sounds. Dorothy accepted the coffee cup I handed her, our fingers brushing in the exchange. Neither of us moved away. Merle, she said, then stopped. I know, I answered. We stood there in the kitchen of a house that wasn't mine, drinking coffee that was too hot, not saying what we both understood. Outside, darkness completed itself. Inside, something new was beginning. 3 months had passed since Dorothy offered me the bungalow. 3 months of legal filings, depositions, continuances. The May deadline came and went, with Kevin refusing to budge, forcing us into formal eviction proceedings. Now, mid-August, we stood in the Multnomah County Courthouse, waiting for our case to be called. Dorothy wore a charcoal suit, her reading glasses tucked into her jacket pocket, carrying a leather briefcase that looked heavy with evidence. She'd spent the previous evening at the bungalow, organizing documents, preparing questions, running through Kevin's likely testimony. Professional, focused, my attorney again, though we both knew she was more than that now. Thompson Versbell, the bailiff, called. We turned toward the courtroom doors. Jennifer rounded the corner with Emma and Marcus, both children taller than I remembered. Emma wore a purple dress. Marcus had a backpack with dinosaurs on it. Our eyes met across the hallway. Marcus tugged Jennifer's hand. Mommy, who's that man? Jennifer's face crumpled slightly. Nobody, honey. The word landed harder than Kevin's threats ever had. I was nobody to my grandson. 3 months of separation had erased me. My hand tightened on the folder Dorothy had given me. She touched my elbow gently. Come on. The courtroom was smaller than television makes them seem. Judge Maria Martinez presided. A woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and no patience for theatrics. I'd learned that much from Dorothy, who'd researched every judge in the rotation. Martin Webb sat at the defendant's table, his suit ill-fitting, his presentation scattered. Kevin beside him looked confident. Harold wasn't present yet. We took our seats at the plaintiff's table. Dorothy arranged her materials with precision. Webb stood for opening arguments. Your Honor, my clients are victims of retaliatory eviction by a bitter, vindictive man who cut off basic utilities to freeze out his own daughter and grandchildren. Judge Martinez looked up from her notes. Mr. Webb, this is a property dispute, not family court. Let's focus on legal standing. But the emotional context, the legal context, counselor, who owns the property? Webb fumbled with his papers. Well, the plaintiff technically, but then let's proceed from there. Dorothy stood slowly, placed a single document on the overhead projector. The original house deed from 1995. My name embossed on the title line. She let it speak before she did. Your Honor, the facts are straightforward. Mr. Bell is sole owner of the property in question. He purchased it 30 years ago, paid off the mortgage in 2018. In March 2025, he returned from caring for his ill sister to find his belongings packed in the garage in his bedroom occupied by Mr. Kevin Thompson's father without permission or notification. She clicked through slides. Each one was a nail in Kevin's case. Bank statements showing 30 years of payments. Utility bills spanning 2 years. Everyone in my name. The notarized eviction notice properly served April 15th. Photos of my belongings boxed in the garage. Timestamps proving the date. And the family's response to the eviction notice? Judge Martinez asked. They ignored it completely and filed this frivolous countersuit claiming constructive eviction. The judge's eyebrow raised. After they constructively evicted him from his own bedroom, Webb called Kevin to the stand. My son-in-law walked up confidently, settled into the witness chair like he was doing everyone a favor by appearing. Webb asked soft questions about family understanding and shared living arrangements. Kevin explained how I'd invited them to stay, how it was meant to be permanent, how cutting off utilities was deliberate cruelty. Then Dorothy stood for cross-examination. Mr. Thompson, how much rent did you pay Mr. Bell monthly? We had a family arrangement. Yes or no? Did you pay rent? Kevin's jaw tightened. No, but when you moved your father into Mr. Bell's bedroom, did you obtain his permission? He was in Seattle. We needed permission. Yes or no? No. When you packed Mr. Bell's belongings into the garage, did you inform him beforehand? Long pause. Kevin glanced at Webb. Found no rescue there. No. Dorothy presented manila folders in sequence like dealing cards. Stephen writes notary affidavit about Kevin's initial mockery when served. Phone records showing Kevin's threatening calls after the notice. The email confirmations of utility disconnections, all requested by the account holder. Me. They called me to the stand. Dorothy's questions were gentle but devastating in their simplicity. Mr. Bell, when you returned from Seattle, where did you sleep that first night? In my garage. On the concrete floor in the house you'd owned for 30 years. Yes. Did anyone apologize? No. My son-in-law told me those were the new rules. The courtroom was quiet except for the court reporter's keys clicking. Judge Martinez reviewed the documents Dorothy had submitted, taking her time. Kevin whispered urgently to Webb. Jennifer sat in the gallery, crying quietly into a tissue. The judge looked up. This court finds no merit in the constructive eviction claim. Mr. Bell is the sole property owner. The respondents are occupants without lease, without payment, who denied the owner access to his own residence. The original eviction notice stands. Respondents must vacate within 7 days and pay plaintiff $8,500 in court costs plus $5,000 in compensatory damages. Harold burst through the courtroom doors. Late as usual, he caught the tail end of the ruling. This is outrageous. We have nowhere. Mr. Thompson, Sr., sit down or I'll hold you in contempt. Bailiff, please. Harold stormed toward the exit instead. This whole system is corrupt. The bailiff moved to intercept him, but the judge waved him off. Let him go. The ruling stands. Kevin sat stunned. Webb gathered his papers. defeat written across his face. Jennifer stood, took her children's hands, walked toward the doors without looking at me. Outside on the courthouse steps, Dorothy finished a call with her office while I watched Kevin help Harold into their car. The old man was still ranting, gesturing wildly. Kevin looked hollow, defeated. Jennifer loaded the crying children into the back seat. She glanced back once, saw me standing there. For a moment, we were just father and daughter again before Kevin, before the house, before everything fractured. Then Kevin called her name sharply, and she got in the car. They drove away. Dorothy joined me, took my arm. You won. I didn't feel like I'd won. I know what you're thinking, she continued quietly. That winning in court isn't the same as winning in life. I nodded. But sometimes protecting yourself is the only victory that matters. You'll have time to rebuild other things. She didn't say rebuild with me, but it was there, unspoken, in the way her hand rested on my arm. We walked to her car together. The courthouse clock showed 3:15. In 7 days, the house would be mine again. Completely mine. The key still fit. I'd never changed the locks. Hadn't needed to. The house had always been mine, legally if not physically. I stood in the entryway, breathing air that smelled different, stale, like windows kept closed too long. Dorothy pulled into the driveway behind me, her car loaded with boxes from the bungalow. My belongings finally coming home. The living room was empty, not just of people, of everything. Family photos that had hung on the walls were gone. Jennifer's decorative pillows. The kids' toys scattered in corners. Kevin's sports memorabilia on the mantel. All vanished. The space felt hollow, but undamaged. They'd taken what they could, but left no destruction behind. I walked through each room methodically. The master bedroom held only the furniture I'd bought 30 years ago, retrieved from the garage where they'd banished it. Kids' room stripped clean. Not even a forgotten crayon on the floor. No trace of Harold anywhere. In the kitchen, a yellow sticky note on the counter caught my eye. Jennifer's handwriting rushed, but legible. Dad, I know this doesn't fix anything, but I need to say I was wrong. Kevin pushed and I let him. And I forgot who raised me and what you taught me about standing up for what's right. I'm sorry I chose his comfort over your dignity. The kids ask about you. I tell them Grandpa loves them. I hope someday you'll forgive me. Your daughter always, Jay. I read it twice, folded it carefully, tucked it in my wallet. Dorothy came through the front door carrying the box labeled Morel books in her familiar handwriting from 4 months ago. She set it down, looked around the empty living room. It's strange, I said. I fought so hard to get back here, and now it feels empty. Sad, like I won the house but lost the life that was in it. She came to stand beside me. The life that was in it pushed you into a garage. You'll make a better life now. We unpacked together. Books returned to shelves, my framed photographs, my parents, my wife, Jennifer as a little girl, back on the mantel. Each item placed was an act of reclamation, rebuilding identity one object at a time. Dorothy found the architecture book in one box. Architecture of the Pacific Northwest. She opened the cover, saw the inscription. To Dad, who taught me to see the bones of buildings. Love, Jennifer. 10 years ago, I said, her birthday gift to me. She was thoughtful once. She was. I don't know when that changed. Dorothy closed the book gently. People don't change. Circumstances reveal who they already were. You just didn't want to see it. Evening arrived while we worked. The house transformed slowly, not back to what it was, but into something new. Dorothy found ingredients she'd brought from the bungalow, started pulling out pots and pans. So what now? She asked, filling a pot with water. You have your house back. Case is closed. You don't need an attorney anymore. I took the pot from her, set it on the stove. Is that what you were, my attorney? For a while. Then something else. Something else sounds better. Much better. We cooked pasta, the same meal we'd made together twice before. Once in her bungalow, once in this kitchen months ago, when I thought life would always include Jennifer and the grandchildren. The ritual felt right, claiming the space together, writing new memories over old ones. After dinner, we carried our wine glasses to the back deck. The Adirondack chairs I'd built 20 years ago sat waiting. We settled into them as summer evening faded toward night. I learned something through all this, I said. What's that? That kindness without boundaries is just weakness. That I deserve respect in my own life. That losing people who don't value you isn't really loss. Dorothy set her glass on the deck railing. And what did you gain? I looked at her, gray hair catching the last light, comfortable in my space like she belonged there. Clarity, strength, you. I was already here. I know. That's the best part. Stars appeared one by one. Somewhere in the neighborhood, wind chimes sounded. The house sat quiet behind us, empty, but no longer lonely. I should probably go, Dorothy said, but didn't move. You could stay. I kept my voice casual. I have a spare bedroom. She laughed softly. A spare bedroom? I'm old-fashioned. So am I. We sat in comfortable silence. Dorothy reached across the space between chairs, found my hand. Tomorrow, she said, we could start putting pictures on the walls. Make it feel like yours again. Ours, I corrected gently. Dorothy squeezed my hand. She didn't argue. In the kitchen, Jennifer's note sat folded in my wallet. Someday I might call her. Someday she might answer. We might rebuild something smaller but more honest than what we'd had before. But tonight, this moment, this peace, this was enough. The house was mine again. Dorothy's hand was warm and mine. The stars kept appearing, filling the dark sky with light. I'd lost a daughter, at least for now. Lost grandchildren who didn't recognize me. Lost the family I thought I had. But I'd gained myself back. Gained boundaries. Gained someone who saw my worth and stood beside me through the ugliest parts of reclaiming it. The evening air was cool, pleasant. Dorothy's thumb traced circles on the back of my hand. Neither of us spoke. We didn't need to. This was everything. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.